Bonjour, bienvenue, and welcome to More Movies Weekly, number 47.
Look me up when you get there, all right? Guess I'll be about 47.
This is the podcast we like to talk about film, cinema, movies, all that sort of stuff. My name is Greg Fisher. His name is David Robert. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about Les Demoiselles de Rochefort. Okay, Les Demoiselles de Rochefort, or otherwise known in English as The Young Girls of Rochefort, is a Jacques Demy film from 1967. It is a musical. It's the first ever French musical I've ever seen. What about you, Dave?
Yeah, it's a first for me as well. I've never seen a French musical. But yeah, it was quite an experience, wasn't it?
Absolutely. This one stars Catherine Deneuve and her sister Françoise Dorléac as two twin sisters that live in a small town of Rochefort, where there is about to be it's like a sort of maritime fair where they're selling boats and stuff like that. And there's also a little naval base in the town. And it's basically about star-crossed lovers that keep missing each other, basically. That's what I got from it anyway. I seen a trailer for this not long ago. Really colourful, impressive cinematography. Noticed that Gene Kelly was also in it, talking about, musical superstars. And I also noticed George Chakiris in there, who most people will know from the original West Side Story movie. And I thought, what's this? I didn't really know much about it. Then I realized I had a copy of it in my collection that I'd never got around to seeing. Told you about it because I know you like this sort of thing. And there we go. The rest is history. We thought we'd watch it and cover it on the podcast. Why not? Something different. One thing I wanted to say straight away was the very opening shot of the film shows this old transporter bridge. And straight away, you and I, we both used to live together when we were students in Newport, South Wales, which has almost identical transporter bridge. It doesn't get used very much anymore in Newport. Times have moved on, but it's still there, and it's kind of like a historical piece, isn't it? It's one of the landmarks of the city. So as soon as we watched this film, put it on, I thought, it's just like Newport. You must have thought the same thing.
I did. I thought exactly the same thing.
So it's almost like the same model of bridge, isn't it? It just looks identical to it. And I was just like getting taken back to our Newport days.
It's an interesting opening shot as well, because it's almost like a magic carpet flying across, full of colour, about to enter this fantastical world that the film's about to take place in. It's quite an interesting way to open the film, really.
Definitely, that's the whole point, isn't it? Crossing the river into the town of Rochefort, and then we are almost in this sort of microcosm. It's his own world. It's kind of like it's a musical world. It's if you know what I mean by that, it's like a little town that is like a set for a perfect musical. That's one of the things I got from watching it as well. It's like, it's one of those movies where you think, I want to live in that town.
Exactly.
I want to go and live there at that time. Sunny days. Everybody dancing about in the streets. Gene Kelly dancing up and down the streets. People singing. Music coming out of their apartment windows and stuff. And it's kind of like idyllic in that sense, isn't it?
It is. It's idyllic and it looks beautiful. I mean, that's the first thing. I mean, we caught it from the trailer, but watching it, it is bombastic and colourful and over the top. It's so wonderful, wonderfully camp film. It's just so visually interesting that every scene is just different colours popping, and it's so vibrant. And that's probably the biggest kind of thing about it. Its look. It's really interesting. Obviously, it's a homage to classical Hollywood musicals.
Certainly in the way it was shot as well. A lot of cranes, a lot of dollying about. The camera's always moving, very stylized. It reminded me of old Hollywood musicals in that way.
Yeah, particularly things you think like Singing in the Rain. Probably the biggest, American in Paris. And what's really interesting is of course, Gene Kelly was an American in Paris, and the last dance he does in the film is the same dance he did in An American in Paris.
The last dance he does in this film?
Yes, yeah. So it's the same choreography.
It's like a little tribute to it.
Little tribute. And, that's what's really interesting is there's clearly a tribute to American classical musicals, but it's very French New Wave as well. It is about normal people, their longings and love. It's a bit absurd, etc. But their everyday is filled with these extravagant dance and song routines. Yeah. And whereas a lot of Hollywood musicals are obviously done on backlots and stage sets and stuff that were built, they've done the same thing, but it's on location. Yeah. And it just adds this really otherworldly look to it, really. They're obviously dressed very nicely, these locations they've gone to, but it's interesting that it's done, it's ain't a set, it's a town, and it's all dressed and looks amazing.
Yeah, it does. That sort of south of France, Riviera kind of sunshine, not a cloud in the sky. Everything's very sunny. All these pastel colours, a lot of sort of funny little bits of humour in there. It sort of really smacks of the 60s as well, the styles and the cut of the dresses and the men's outfits as well. Everyone's wearing those little white boots. Did you notice that? I was like, okay, must be good for dancing in, or just just looked good or something. But very, very stylish film. It looked gorgeous, really nice reproduction. Jacques Demy, in terms of French New Wave figures, I think his films, because he's the other big one is the Umbrellas of Cherbourg is a big one of his, which predated this film by a couple of years. And it's not so much thematically the same sort of stuff as Godard or Truffaut or even his wife Agnes Varda. He does his own thing, really. Even though he came up in that movement, his films are kind of like separated aside from it in a way, and you can see why. Much more production gone into them, much more sort of a tribute to Hollywood, as we've said. Whereas things by Godard were more sort of run and gun kind of indie feel to them.
Yes, yeah.
And that goes down to the editing and everything else as well. But this was, I had to see it. I just thought, if you're a fan of things like West Side Story, the original one, this should definitely be on your list of to sees, shouldn't it? It's the music definitely. In it was really cool. It was quite jazzy.
It was
very
really
jazzy.
Very jazzy. There's some really wonderful movements in there. The actual piece that she plays on the piano, which is the kind of bit that follows through that Gene Kelly finds the sheet for.
Yeah, it's like the central theme, isn't it?
It's a wonderful piece of music. It really is. It's really nice. And it kind of follows through the whole kind of soundtrack of the film, really, doesn't it?
It's like a leitmotif, I believe.
Yeah. It's really good. There's some great numbers in there. There's obviously the sisters do a few different numbers. There's a particular one in red dresses.
Yeah.
That they do, which is really stylistic. That's very reminiscent of Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. It
was obviously kind of a tribute to that there.
So there's a lot of kind of that in there, kind of, we're paying homage to the musical Hollywood classical kind of movements and stuff, but doing its own thing with it as well. I mean, in some ways, the story and stuff is a bit farcical and silly in the kind of French tradition, but it's so weird and big and wonderful and colourful that you kind of just go along with it and go, this is great. So it works in that way.
Well, if you think of something like Grease, the whole thing is that he had a summer fling and then they both went their separate ways, but they actually end up in the same place again. And there is and in a way there was kind of the same thing here, between their mother who runs the cafe and the guy who owns the music shop. They've been separated and then they don't even know they're both within earshot of one another again. And So it's kind of those sort of themes that are sort of familiar territory for musicals in a lot of ways. The central performances there by the two sisters were brilliant. You can see why someone like Catherine Deneuve is, lauded as one of the great French actresses. I read about her sister, Françoise d'Orléac, because I wanted to see whether they were actually twins or there was any difference. And Françoise d'Orléac is slightly older. She was born a year before, but she actually died the same year as this film came out in 1967 in a terrible car accident, which was a bit shocking to find out, really. I thought, oh, God,
it's
that's
really sad to hear, isn't it?
Because Catherine Deneuve obviously is still alive, and she's, up until a few years ago, she was still starring and stuff, and one of France's, like we've got Judi Dench and people like that. They've got her, and
that's it.
She's one of the main ones, and you can see why. They're both so talented. They, great dancers, obviously. I'm not sure whether they did the singing or not, because a lot of them got replaced. Even Gene Kelly's singing voice was replaced in this one.
I was reading all but one member of the cast, basically, they were dubbed.
It was kind of standard practice, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
It happened in West Side Story a lot and stuff as well. But yeah, once seen, never forgotten, I think,
Definitely. It's really different. I was reading that Damien Chazelle, this was one of his major inspirations for La La Land.
La La Land, yeah. And I was going to say as well, in terms of contemporary influences, Wes Anderson must have
definitely
watched this film a few times, just in terms of the colours and the camera moves and stuff like that. It was definitely smacked of his kind of material.
Definitely, yeah. It has a look that is really, really interesting. Goes beyond, because it's colourful, and then it's colourful, and this is, it's everything. And the costume's constantly changing, but it looks so great. But kind of in a way, it's like that celebration of French culture in that way because of the fashion and the music and stuff, which was really nice.
Yeah, and something we're not used to seeing, because it usually is Hollywood. It's usually, some American story somewhere, maybe some British stuff sometimes, but French, not so much. And it's like, it's interesting from that point of view, especially as that it was a contemporary piece. It's like released in '67, and you can tell it was kind of set in those days as well. It wasn't supposed to be a period piece or anything else. It was contemporary,
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because most French cinema I've watched is the more gritty side of French cinema.
Yeah.
Le Haine and Nikita and stuff like that is more the stuff I've watched, and or kind of the French New Wave, kind of more indie kind of feel of films. So to watch a big production French film like this, it's very different and quite interesting. I mean, I saw a great... This is one. I found a review on I don't know if it was Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb that someone who'd watched the film wrote, which did make me chuckle. They said the musical numbers seriously look like they came out of a porno, but a charming, classy, softcore kind of porno. That's pretty much how I describe this entire movie. Innocently, campily sexual.
That's pretty much how I describe France.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like super French, absolutely super French. One thing that was impressive about it as well, because some musicals, you'll go quite a long bit of time before the next musical number in between, and you'll get some exposition and some dialogue and whatnot. But this one didn't hang about. It was like one song finished or one piece of music finished. They'd say a few bits and this and that for a minute or two, and then they'd be into the next track and then the next track. So the music was like constant. It was always going. And I thought that was quite impressive. It was like, we're into the next number. Get your dancing shoes on.
Yeah, lots of big dance numbers as well. Like, it wasn't really like lamenting ballads going on. It was like, no, these are big dancing numbers and ballet and stuff like that. It was very impressive.
Very jazzy.
Very jazzy.
And then at the end, it's nice that it comes full circle. It kind of ends the way it started, with them leaving on the transporter bridge again. Yeah. It's like they're leaving this magical world now, coming back to the normal world with all its darkness and destruction and terrible things going on. And quite singular, a real eyeful. and have to be marked up there as one of the top musicals, certainly of the era.
Yeah, it's really different. I'm glad I've seen it. It's really different and stands out, and it's worth checking out for sure. For how unique it is,
Yeah, Jacques Demy, interesting. I would be interested to see more of his work now I've seen this. Yeah. I'd like to maybe go back and watch The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. And he was making films right up to the 80s. Hasn't got an extensive back catalogue, but that's not always necessarily a bad thing because, as we say, is quality, not quantity. Married to Agnes Varda, somebody who I think is one of the best new wave directors. Everyone goes on about Godard and Truffaut, but Agnes Varda, I think is very, very interesting. Made some excellent stuff. I think she had something to do with this film coming up with the story, and he wrote it and stuff as well.
She was involved in the production. There's a little cameo of her in there apparently somewhere. I didn't quite spot it.
I missed her as well. We'll have to go back and have a look. It was great though. Absolutely brilliant. Really, very stylish. Really glad I watched it. Would be happy to watch it again and show it to other people who might be interested in that. It's obviously not going to be everyone's cup of tea. If you're into like Jason Statham movies where you're a strong man and you just kill everyone, you're probably not going to like this very much. But, if you're open-minded and you like a wide range of stuff, certainly worth checking out, in my opinion. So this week, rather than going over any movie news, what I thought we'd do, as we've just been talking about the Young Girls of Rochefort, is do our top 5 musicals. You into that?
Let's do it. Brilliant.
Let's do it. Okay, so this is something we do here on our YouTube channel from time to time, our top 5 of films in any given loose genre or category. So this is our top 5 musicals. Let's start at the top and work our way down to number 1. So at number 5, let's take away the doors. I have gone for Oliver.
And I've gone with Hairspray from 2007.
So Oliver, obviously a bit of a classic from back in the day, based on Oliver Twist, Charles Dickens novel. Got some great songs in this one. I remember growing up, consider yourself our mate. We don't want to make a fuss. All of that. Great stuff. Got to pick a bucket or two, boys. Got to pick a bucket or two. What was that as well? Who will buy these beautiful roses? It's got some great ones in there. Haven't seen it for years, to be honest with you, but I remember really enjoying it as a kid.
My favourite song was that, what's that? The Situation. But at the end where he leaves, great film, great classic from childhood.
Classic musical. Got some real bangers in there. A lot of fun. Obviously, you've got Oliver Reed in there as Bill Sikes. Terribly scary performance from him.
Absolutely.
Frightened the hell out of most kids, I think. Just his face.
Yeah, great choice. I didn't come into my mind actually when doing it, but excellent choice. I've always loved Oliver.
So Hairspray 2007. Pray tell.
Yeah,
what's it all about?
Hairspray, great cast: John Travolta, Michelle Pfeiffer, Christopher Walken, Zac Efron. This is the most modern one I've got on my list. Most modern musicals don't do it for me.
No.
Although I love High School Musical, but that's a separate one.
You had to squeeze it in there.
But it's not. But it's not in my list. I must say, High School Musical. But I put Hairspray in there because it's one I really do enjoy. I thought it was one of the better modern musicals. It's got the stars in there. Travolta's back. Christopher Walken's great in there.
He's a good dancer, Walken, isn't he?
He is. He's fantastic bloody dancer.
I don't know if he's got a good singing voice, but he's definitely a good dancer.
Zac Efron, of course, is in this. This is one of his big. I think this is probably the last kind of musical role he did. He didn't, because he tried to then become more of a serious actor, hasn't he?
Can't blame him. Let's get straight on with it to number 4. I had Little Shop of Horrors.
And I had Grease. It's the word.
Little Shop of Horrors, brilliant, fun. Rick Moranis, Steve Martin. Got some great songs in there. Suddenly Seymour, all of that stuff. You got The Huge Plant. I think it was based on a stage musical, and they sort of converted it to the film version. Definitely one of my favorites. Got that sort of dark edge to it, the whole idea of him. It's a bit like Sweeney Todd, really, in the sense that he's like offing people and feeding them to the plant, and it gets a bit out of hand, as these things often do. Do you like Little Shop of Horrors?
Love it, love it. Classic, isn't it? Classic 80s. It's a bit different, isn't it, as a musical, because it's a darker, kind of satirical horror one. Of course, I went with Grease, which is just a
classic.
Standard classic. Everyone knows Grease. Everyone knows everything about Grease. If you don't, you've been living under a rock. But it's classic campy affair, isn't it? Set in 50s America, two lovers basically wanting to get together, but there's all this distance between them. There's the girls and the guys, and all the controversy that goes on throughout the film, etc.
Yeah, she's kind of a square, and he's a bit of a rocker. It's all about peer pressure and stuff like that, I suppose, isn't it?
That's it. But classic. Everybody loves it. Everyone loves the songs.
That's the
Timeless.
thing about Grease. The music, it's just absolutely amazing. Some really great writing in there. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll move on to our number 3 selections, because for my number 3 choice was Grease.
And I went with Half a Sixpence from 1967.
So, yeah, as you've just said, Grease is his classic. I grew up watching it. It was one of those films from very early age. We had it on videotape. Me and my sister and my cousin and that, we used to watch it to death. We knew all the dance routines and the songs and sing along with it, dance along with it. You can't beat Grease. It's one of those. It's like a mainstay. Loved it.
Absolutely. Half a Sixpence, well, that's just one of them. As a kid, I remember watching it and being mesmerised by it. I love the musical numbers. Tommy Steele, of course, and Julia Foster. British musical, which makes it unique, because there's not too many of them.
No.
But, it's kind of set in oldie England. He falls in love with this girl, and it's all about their relationship and them getting married, etc. But some classic numbers in there from Tommy Steele at the height of his powers, I guess, and popularity, with Half a Sixpence and Flashbang Wallop, what a picture, and all those little classics in there. Great, just a great film. It was always on the telly, and we had it on tape, and I just watched it all the time.
Okay, so for our number 2 picks, we're getting closer now. I had West Side Story, the 1961 version, of course.
I could have guessed that you had that in there. Rocky Horror Picture Show is what I've gone for, from 1975.
Okay. Well, West Side Story, we covered this just a couple of podcast episodes back, where we compared and contrasted to the new Steven Spielberg film. We also have a couple of articles up on the website, West Side Story theme. So we'll link all that stuff in the description below for West Side Story fans. But yeah, I mean, we've already gone over this a few times. I don't need to say too much about it. It's one of the greatest musicals of all time. The music alone, Leonard Bernstein, Stephen Sondheim, is phenomenal. The choreography by Jerome Robbins, phenomenal. Great performances. You got Natalie Wood in there. George Chakiris, who we were just talking about, made an appearance in the Young Girls of Rochefort. So yeah, just one of the best ever.
Certainly is.
Can't believe I didn't have it at number 1, but I didn't. Number 2.
So it is a smashing film. It is one of the best. Yeah, as we say, we've talked about it a lot. It's so great, and go check out us talking about it. Basically, it's what we would recommend.
Pretty much.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. Well, it's a cult classic these days. Richard O'Brien, Tim Curry, one of my favourites ever. Meatloaf, of course, in there. Susan Sarandon. It's a brilliant, over the top, campy, ridiculous musical, but the kind of eccentricity of it and all the ridiculous stuff that happens in there, it's so over the top and controversial. It's brilliant, and all the songs are so sing-alongable and catchy. It's just great fun to keep on going back to.
Okay, that leads us to our top spots. Dun, 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 dun. Our number one spots, I have gone for the Blues Brothers.
Oh, classic. I've gone with Moulin Rouge.
Moulin Rouge. Well, yeah, Blues Brothers, I mean, it's not your typical musical, but a musical all the same.
Absolutely.
The story of Jake and Elwood Blues. One of them just gets out of prison. Then they decide to get their band back together to save their orphanage that they grew up in from becoming, ruined and closed. So that's basically the story of it, isn't it? But you've got such a wealth of great American music, blues and soul and R&B musicians in there. James Brown, John Lee Hooker, Aretha Franklin. They're all in there. It's absolutely brilliant film. They did make a sequel in year 2000, I think, Blues Brothers 2000 or something. Awful. Don't ever bother. I wouldn't. It's not good at all. Very good, no. But the original film, Cab Calloway, all of the guys in the band as well, really talented musicians. Lots of fun. If you love that sort of music as well. I mean, John Candy was in there as well as a cameo role. Even Steven Spielberg makes a cameo in this film. That's how great this is. But yeah, probably one of my favorite films of all time. Certainly my favorite musical of all time. Love the Blues Brothers.
Absolute classic. Great choice. Great pick. I love Blues Brothers. Really, really one of my favorite films as well. I go on Moulin Rouge, a bit more of a modern one here as well. I kind of struggled with this list because there's so many different options I could have gone down, but I thought Moulin Rouge is one I keep on going back to. It's more of a jukebox musical. Baz Luhrmann, of course, who is doing the upcoming Elvis film. We reacted to that trailer not long ago.
Can't wait for that.
Can't wait for that. It's the last in his Red Curtain trilogy after Strictly Ballroom and Romeo and Juliet, which I really enjoy as well. But just a great, over-the-top musical about a guy who falls in love with a girl who's working at the Moulin Rouge, but he can't be with her or shouldn't be with her because she is promised away to someone else, and so desperately want to be in love, and then they do, but behind everyone's backs or stuff like that. Nicole Kidman, Ewan McGregor. In those two roles, who are fantastic actors anyway, and their voices match. Jim Broadbent has a really great role as well as kind of the owner, the ringmaster of the Moulin Rouge as well. Yeah, he's fantastic, and just some great tunes in there that are written, and great famous pop songs that reimagined into montages and or like Roxanne is turned into El Tango de Roxanne in a really kind of vicious and intense scene in the ballroom and stuff. So it's really great fun, kind of pop culture jukeboxy musical.
Massive film when it came out, visually very, very striking. It's that classic Baz Luhrmann style we've come to know and love, isn't it? It's just real quality cinematography, costume design, set dressing, the rest of it. Really, really good. Great choice. But yeah, there we go. There's our top 5 musicals from both of us. Please leave us a comment and let us know your top 5 musicals or your favorite musical of all time, or comment on ours and tell us what we got wrong or what you liked about what we listed off there. What did we miss out? It's not a genre that I'm over familiar with, to be honest. We all have seen musicals. We all have our favorite types of musicals, but it's again a genre that we're still discovering a lot about, hence looking at Les Damoiselles de Rochefort, like we have this week, which was a very interesting exercise. But let us know in the comments, what's your favorite? So that just leaves us enough time to tell you about what else we've been up to on the internet. And here on our YouTube channel this week, we have a reaction to the trailer for the forthcoming A24 movie, which is called Men. It stars Jessie Buckley and Rory Kinnear. Looks very interesting, exciting. We certainly had a lot to say about that when we watched the trailer. So if you want to see us react to that one, check out the trailer itself. There is a link in the description below.
Absolutely. We've also got a review up on the website and here on the YouTube channel, Film in 5. That's The Eyes of Tammy Faye I've just covered. Of course, Jessica Chastain just won the Oscar for Best Actress for this film. So, yeah, check that out in the link in the description down below.
Excellent review there, Dave. We also have our top 5 Jean-Luc Godard films. I thought as we were covering a Jacques Demy film this week, we'd include Jean-Luc Godard in our top 5 directors articles that we have up on the website. We got loads of them up there now. Agnes Varda is also up there. I'll link that in the description below if you want to check out our top 5 Agnes Varda films. But there is a huge list of top 5 directors articles on our website. If you want to check them out, that's where they are.
Absolutely. And if you fancy listening to us in audio-only format, maybe you're going for a walk or you're cooking away in the kitchen, then you can do so with our podcast on all the major podcast platforms. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. All of them, really. There's a link in the description down below for all that information.
And why not join us on social media? We are at More Movies For You on all the major social media platforms. So come and say hello to us on Twitter or Instagram or something. We also have a Discord server if you want to have a live chat with us there. There's links in the description to all of these down below.
And if you enjoy what we're doing and would like to support us, you can hop on over to buymeacoffee.com and buy us a latte, a cappuccino, or some other nice drink to help us keep the lights on right here at More Movies. Or you can hop on over to Patreon, where we have some packages you can subscribe to, where you can vote on the films we're going to cover here on the podcast or review in our films, and that supports us as well.
Thanks very much for joining us this week. Please leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of the podcast. We really appreciate you watching along. All your comments, likes, etc. Support is very much valued by us. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back again next week with number 48. Until then, take care of yourselves and keep watching more movies.
That's it for this video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And remember to like, share and subscribe right here on YouTube. For more film reviews and articles, check out our website, moremovies.co.uk. And join us on social media at More Movies For You. That's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all across the board. You know the score. If you enjoy what we do, please consider supporting us at buymeacoffee.com or join us on one of our packages on Patreon. The links are in the description down below. And for more filmtastic content, click one of the buttons on screen now.